Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and however you're listening to this podcast and wherever you're listening. We just appreciate that you do. This is the Delaware High School Football Pod presented by Websites for Sports, and we are the only media outlet dedicated exclusively to high school football in the first state. The pod is available wherever you listen to your podcast. It's just a matter of when you listen to your podcast. We know not everybody can listen as soon as it drops on Sunday afternoons. Follow us on X at Delaware High School Football, DELHS Football, that is, and on Facebook at the DELHSfootball.com. All right, 3A game canceled, and it can't be rescheduled. Is that going to be an issue come playoff time? And did the biggest upset of the year happen in 3A already in week one, excuse me? And what about in 1A? Did the biggest upset already happen as well? And there's a new kid on the block, or should we say in the backfield. And where is it? Here's a hint. He plays in Bear. But let's start with the title sponsor of the Delaware High School Football Pod. It's Websites for Sports, created and managed by Brian Rudder, and it's the only place you can find the schedule of every high school team in Delaware. On that schedule, it tells you the home team, the away team, and the location of the team. You click on an icon, and it gives you maps with directions. It's really a one-stop shop for high school schedules, and many of the teams also put their stats up on the games, and we certainly appreciate when that happens. And here's my favorite feature. You can sign up for schedule alerts. I load my son's schedules before the season starts, and without this alert, I might not notice a schedule change, but Websites for Sports gives you that functionality. Bottom line, if you have a child playing middle or high school sports, or even if you're just a fan, this is the one and only website that provides accurate and up-to-date schedules, and they do it all for free. We can't thank Brian Rudder from Websites for Sports enough for what they do for interscholastic sports. And of course, for their sponsorship of this podcast. It's just another way they're supporting high school sports. That's websites, the number 4sports.com. All right, Marty, let's dive right into it.
Yep.
Big upset downstate. Now, normal year, not a huge upset. But when Middletown chartered down to Sussex Central, it was after coming off maybe their biggest win that wasn't a state championship game in program history. I don't know. Number 4 team in New Jersey. That's pretty
Given the
impressive.
resume, yeah.
And so, quite possibly, certainly the biggest win in, I would say, Coach Blum's era. Again, not including the state championship games. And so it's just a great win for Sussex Central. And I was thinking to myself, Marty, of all the programs and all the coaches in the state, with respect to everybody, John Wells's team always seems to respond when the bell is rung, no matter what the situation and no matter where they're playing. He just has that kind of, we are who we are. We're going to be who we are. They run the wing T, the oldest offense in the history of Delaware sports, and come get us. And if you beat us, you beat us. But trust us, it's not going to be easy.
No, and these last 2 weeks, they've really kind of played with fire. They were down to Laurel, or tied with Laurel, late in that game before they exploded for a few late touchdowns. And then this week, I think you can also add the fact that this is an upset to the fact that this was a 33-21 game with about 6 minutes left.
Right.
Sussex Central had taken the lead with about 10 and a half minutes left. Middletown immediately comes back with a touchdown pass to, I believe it's Darius Pope, a 50-yard touchdown pass. They take the lead. And then on the next possession, Sussex Central is driving down the field. Bradley Chavez, who we love, by the way, the Sussex Central quarterback, fumbles the snap, and it goes right into the waist of the Middletown defender, Morgan Davis, who goes 80 yards untouched for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, it looks like it's over. Sussex Central, and watching this game live, it was driving me crazy because even with 3 minutes left, they were still huddling. Chavez was still coming to the sideline. I'm like, oh my God, they're wasting so much time. Well, they obviously knew what they were doing. John Wells, they took their time getting that first touchdown, and then they used their timeouts after that. Now, there was a combination of things that happened at the end of this game, too. Obviously, the big takeaway is with 3 seconds left in the game, Bradley Chavez hits Jawan Sturgis with a 5-yard touchdown pass to basically seal the win. They kicked off, and Middletown had a pretty nice return, but of course didn't go anywhere. Middletown really shot themselves in the foot a couple times here late in this game with penalties, careless penalties. There was a pass interference penalty. There was a personal foul penalty that kind of allowed Sussex Central to hang around at the very end, and boy, they took advantage of it.
Mhm.
The fact that they run the wing T, but that Bradley Chavez was able to expertly execute some passing offense there at the end was just phenomenal. Middletown, you could tell, was absolutely stunned. I love the quarterback for Middletown, by the way, who had a phenomenal game. Cunningham, 13 of 26, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns. Darius Pope for them, 5 for 141 and 3 scores. But Malik Bell continues to be the big story. And what I was starting out with when I said that they flirted with fire the last 2 weeks, they seem to wear teams down in the second half with that offense.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of physical activity at the line and at the second level. Malik Bell, second week in a row, a great game, 30 carries, 201 yards. Harmon added 14 carries for 91 yards. Sussex Central ran for 309 yards. You just don't see that against a Middletown defense, and that wears you down over time. So Sussex Central coming away with this. Yes, it's an upset. It's an even bigger upset considering the circumstances in the fourth quarter. We just finished with this. Sussex Central outscored Middletown 24-13 in the fourth quarter alone, 37 points.
Mm.
Last year, Middletown allowed 24 or more points only 3 times to in-state teams, and 2 of those were to Salesianum. And last year's game, it was Middletown 34, Sussex Central nothing. Before Sussex Central finally got on the board, they lost 41-7. So take that all, add it all up, throw it in a jumble, and you come out with this result. You just didn't see this coming.
Well, and the other thing that wing T offense does, and we've seen this over the years, I remember especially at a game that they played at Smyrna, it keeps the other offense off the field. And you
It
can't
does.
score on offense if your team's on the sideline. And
It's a
I've
clock
watched it.
chewer. Yep.
It is the wing T. You know, and it's funny. I saw a post somewhere on social media that Coach Zach Blum was playing on the scout team. Basically, he was playing quarterback
Yeah.
for the wing T because nobody knows the wing T, and they don't except for Sussex
Yeah,
Central.
I'm not sure how Bradley Chavez felt when he read that. Hey, Blum is running my position
That's
here.
right.
Hopefully
Some
that didn't. Hopefully
45
that didn't
plus.
mimic game day conditions.
Right. Some plus 45-year-old man can run my position. What's that say?
That's right.
But anyway, congratulations to John Wells and the Sussex Central
Yes.
Golden Knights on that big win. Middletown's going to play at Odessa, and we'll talk more about that game. Eppo beating Odessa pretty convincingly. But, you know, I texted you, Marty, about halfway through that game as we went to a running clock at Appoquinimink that, boy, I feel bad for Odessa Middletown coming in once we knew Sussex Central had won. And so anyway, you know, Nick DeGotti will have his team ready to play. And, you know, sometimes it's great to be a big underdog, which is what you would have considered Sussex Central I mean, you wouldn't now because, they're good enough to beat Middletown, obviously.
Right.
But, after you beat a team like Red Bank, everybody else is a big underdog as far as
I agree
until they prove otherwise. So, Nick DeGotti will be looking for his first win in that one. Sussex Central 2-0. They're heading to DMA also 2-0. Huge win over Delmar, second straight season. They've taken down Delmar early in the season. Last year, DMA had to travel way down to Delmar, and Marty, it doesn't get any farther south in Delaware. In fact, when you get to Delmar, you can take 2 steps out of the parking lot and you're in Maryland.
Yep.
They actually have students from Maryland. It's the only district in the state that goes over a border and actually has students from them. And, I saw you and Jeremy Jean, the athletic director of DMA, chatting back and forth on social media, and he's talking about the culture being back to where it needs to be, where it was, where it got out of control, and we're not going to finger point how that happened by any means on the show right now because, it's a lot of subjectivity for that. But Jeremy Jean feels good about where his team is. He brought in Matt Carey. He feels better. He feels as good about his team off the field, and the wins are kind of like a secondary thing because Jeremy Jean's been around long enough, longtime athletic director at Glasgow, to realize if you don't manage the off-field stuff and have a good culture, there's no way you're going to win. You may win games, but you're not going to be a winning program, which DMA has not been in the last couple of years. And so everything seemed to be back on track at DMA. Now we're going into week 3 or week 2, week 3, if you count week 0. So hopefully that continues, but DMA certainly seems to be in a good spot.
They do. They Cale Denigris on that team, that defensive lineman. Sean Greed did an interview with him after the game. It's just phenomenal. He talked about, he rumbled, 55 yards for a touchdown on a fumble return. And to hear him describe seeing the ball and seeing no one in front of him and said, man, if I don't make this, I'm never going to live this down. And he said, so at the very end, he felt someone behind him. So he did a wrestling roll into the end zone, which we saw another game this week where somebody did a roll into the end zone where it was not for strategic purposes, which drew a penalty, but for the big guy, it was fantastic. And it's funny that he mentioned wrestling because during the interview, he repeatedly tries to wrestle the microphone away from Sean Green, which is funny to watch. A kid is so excited about this win and this team, and you look at a team like DMA, you look at Salesianum and you look at Caravel and you look at their two better players on offense. They both were running backs at DMA.
Right.
So DMA loses some pretty good players. Once these players establish that they're going to be stars, we all know sometimes they try to go looking where the grass is greener. They
for
think.
academic purposes only. For academic
That's right.
purposes
That's right.
only.
Disclaimer here. But Matt Carey, again, even more to his credit, is he's taken the kids that stick around and stay with the program for 4 years, and he's turning them into winners. He's done a really good job there. He said there's been no off-field issues at all. There's been no shenanigans or whatnot. So it's been fun to watch, excuse me, DMA play so well. And of course, I can see DMA from my driveway. So when they score, you can hear the roar when our back door is open, which is kind of cool. But yeah, great start for Matt Carey. And for Dave Hearn and company, I'm sure this was a bit of a surprise. After, last week they didn't give any challenge they didn't get any challenge from Dickinson. And we knew that was going to happen. But to come up and only put 6 points on the board against DMA, boy, that defense looks good. Now, I tweeted, and I'm sure some people may have seen this too, but they may regret scheduling these next 2 games because right now DMA is on a high.
Right.
The next 2 games are against big time 3A opponents. Mm-hmm. And they may take it on the chin. Here's hoping that they use it as the learning experiences that they probably will be and continue to get better at the 2A level. It's so tough when you go into a game and the opponent that is bigger on both lines, which they're going to face in both cases. Plus, they're going to face a Smyrna team that is going to be looking to put up 150 points after the last 2 weeks of struggling. So, yeah, this DMA team is here to stay in the 2A contender status, but here's hoping the next 2 weeks go well for them. And you never, after some of the results we've seen, who knows? You never know.
No,
there's some young guys on Smyrna. There's a lot of experience on DMA. So let's see how it plays out.
Delmar is going to play at Colonel Richardson. I looked at Delmar's schedule over the last 5 or 6 years. They have not played them. So we have I know other teams have because I recognize the name of the school, but not sure how good they are. We'll find out. They haven't played in recent years. DMA, as you mentioned, they're going to go to Smyrna. Tough place to play under any conditions. The fact that you got shut out for the first time in over 10 years is not going to make it any easier. And I believe, and I've asked a couple other people, who we know in the business, and they think they agree that this will be the first ever meeting between these 2 schools.
Yes.
Of course, Smyrna's been around forever. DMA has been around for a decade or 15 years.
2003.
Whatever it is. Okay, there you go.
Yep.
You should know that, Marty. It's your home school in your neighborhood.
That's right.
All right, Lake Forest, Caesar Rodney High School. Lake Forest moves to 2-0 with a 21-14 win. Marty, this was a big game for both programs. I think for Freddie Johnson, a 2A team playing a 3A team, it's the second straight year that Lake beat CR. They won by 25 last year. So Sean Strickland was able to tighten that up a little bit there. But Caesar Rodney coming off that William Penn win, I think had an opportunity to make a statement. And that statement was not made. Lake Forest is a very good 2A team right now. I'm not ready to give them elite status, which, quite frankly, the only 2A team I'm giving that status right now is Caravel.
The Bucks, yeah.
And so, unlike 3A, where we sort of have 4 teams and the bottom tiers, in 2A, there's 2 tiers, Caravel and everybody else. And the rest of that will shake out. But Lake, they certainly inched themselves up to the top of that second tier in 2A. Caesar Rodney, in my mind, they play, they're still at that bottom tier. And let's be real, even if they beat Lake Forest, they're not up in that middle tier, in my opinion. And I think you agree with me. But they would have inched closer than they are right now. And again, Sean Strickland's doing a great job. I read some quotes and stuff in the paper. He's, his kids are playing hard. They're, 21-14. Again, you lost by 1 score. Last year, you lost by 3+ scores. And so that is a big difference. And so, on that end of it, congratulations to Caesar Rodney for going into Lake Forest and coming away with a hard fought loss.
Yep.
Best way to put it.
Yep.
But basically, it's a much bigger win for Lake Forest, because if Lake Forest doesn't win that game, Marty, you start questioning last week's win, and
Yep.
was it as big as it seemed to be, type of thing.
And this is a huge win for Lake Forest because it's a 6 point win. You get the 4 points for beating a team above you, plus you get the 2 bonus points for playing a 3A team. And Freddie Johnson, again, this squad looks really good. Josh Webb, the new defensive coordinator, friend of the show, his defense has been playing lights out. They shut out CR 13-0 through the first half. And this was a Spartan team. Last year, they were wrecked by injuries early in the season. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost their starting running back, some defensive players. Those guys are all back. Aiden Young is the running back they lost last year. Second solid week in a row, 21 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Jack Parson, kind of a guy who sort of more of a game manager, where he's not going to make the mistakes that hurt you, but he is going to put you in position to make some big plays. He had 100 total yards, a touchdown. AJ White, 6 carries, 41 yards. Also did a good job on defense, a forced fumble recovery, and an interception. So he kind of did a little bit of everything for them. Lake Forest looks tough right now.
Yeah.
Now they that win is going to propel them, I think, because not only is it a 3A team, but coming off of that 17-0 win over William Penn, a lot more expectations for CR coming into this game. And for Lake Forest to hold them off, and give credit to Sean Strickland. His guys, again, didn't give up. They fought back, and they had a chance to win this game. An interception at the 11 yard line to end the game. So they got down fairly close. But CR's it's going to be a struggle still going forward for them. As you said, they've still got to prove they can get past that bottom tier. But for Lake Forest, this is going to propel them. They're inching closer and closer to that contender status in 2A.
Want to give a shout out to Lake Forest senior Aiden Young. He just recovered from 2 surgeries over the last couple of years. He had a torn ACL in his knee and a torn ligament in his foot. As a sophomore, he gained over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns in 10 games. Injuries started happening. Since then, he's only played in 6 games. That's 464 yards and 6 touchdowns, but he seems to be back at full strength. We love to see that, Marty. When somebody gets hurt, we love to see them recover. And so that's a case there where Aiden Young is doing that. Next up for Lake, they host Red Lion. They lost to them 28-6 last year up here in Bear. Red Lion just beat Glasgow pretty significantly. So that's going to be an interesting game, Marty. To me, we talk about the Caravel and everybody else.
Yep.
The winner of that game, and for my opinion at this point, and we're early, is going to be that first team in that second tier, and going to be the team I think that's going to have a shot to beat Caravel when those games happen. And it's neat that they do.
I agree, and we'll talk about that at the end too, because they're one of my games to watch next week. Because I do think that's a big matchup in 2A.
All right, so those are the 2 or 3 big games that we talked about. Before we go on to what we're going to call a quick hit segment, and those of you that listened last year knows what that means. I'll talk to you more about that. Every senior has a story to tell, and at Andre L Photography, they bring these stories to life. Their portraits go beyond the traditional, capturing the essence of who they are in the pivotal moments of their lives. They create senior portraits that tell the authentic story of each student and their hard work. Celebrate your senior's journey by booking a session today at andrelphotography.com. My wife and I did, and the pictures turned out phenomenal, and I'd be happy to share some of those with you if anybody wants to see them, or you can see them online. A lot of the Appoquinimink High School fall sports pictures that you see online are taken by Andre L. All right, so this is going to be a quick hits thing, and Marty and I were banging back and forth on text messages yesterday about, what do we do in a week when there's, a lot of blowouts, but still stories within the blowouts, or even not really significant games, but we want to give shout outs to teams for certain reasons or players for certain reasons. And, but we don't want to spend a ton of time on it. And so what we're going to do is these quick hit segments. Sometimes quick hits will be 1 or 2 games. Sometimes there'll be 7 games. It doesn't matter. And, again, our whole purpose of this podcast, I should say, is to get names out and teams out. And so that the sport of football, high school football in Delaware, people know more about it, whether you're an avid fan or just an average listener. And we've learned over the 4 years we've been doing this, we have both. We have people that tune in specifically looking for their kid's name or their team's name. And then we have others who just love us keeping them in touch with what's going on around in the world of high school sports. So let's start with a game that wouldn't seem significant, but it was. Christiana 20, Newark 7. Last year, that game was flipped 35-0. It's the first time Christiana has beaten Newark in 6 tries. Head coach Brian Wood, 1-0 this year in this season. And so he has his kids playing well there. And again, Marty, I'm trying to figure out how to take this. Of course, a lot of people know I'm the columnist for the Newark Post. So I cover the three main high school teams I cover public are the Christiana, Glasgow, and Newark. Also going to cover Newark Charter, already covering their JV team.
Yep.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to read this. The last 3 years, Jody Russell got when they redivisioned everybody, reclassed everybody. Newark went to 2 straight playoff games, and again, they weren't dominant in Class 2A. They snuck in to the playoffs. They not snuck in, wrong term, but you know what I'm saying. They got to the playoffs. That was their goal, get to the playoffs,
Yep.
and that's what they did. Whereas Christiana and Glasgow struggled. Last year, Glasgow got in at 4-6 because of a lot of different things that happened. And again, that's all you want to do. You can't control it. You get in. My point being, for the last several years, it was Newark which was nothing like back in the Butch Simpson eras, for a lot of different reasons. Nothing to do with coaching. I'll just make that asterisk. Nick Saban wouldn't be winning a lot of games at those three schools for a lot of different reasons, different podcasts, maybe in the off season. But the bottom line is Newark was the king of the district of the three schools in the sport of football. And now that maybe has flipped, and not flipped because Christiana and Glasgow are going to make runs for state titles. They're going to make runs for playoff appearances. Yep. And so I think it's going to be interesting in the next couple weeks. Newark plays at Tower Hill. Had a big win, sort of unexpected, shocked, not, wrong term, shocked, not at all, but sort of unexpected. And so it'll be interesting to see the reaction of the Newark High School football program. Tieron Rice is the head coach there now, doing what he can with the 30 kids that were on the sidelines. And so it'll be interesting to see how this works out. But we bring this game up for that reason. If Newark wins 20-7, we're not talking about this game. No. We're on to the next.
And this is great. I already got a headline for you for the Newark Post. Glasgow leads Christiana past Newark. The quarterback for Christiana's last name is Glasgow. How great is that?
I saw somebody's tweet that said that.
It was me.
Okay. I wasn't even looking at who did it. But.
I said, Ike's Glasgow was 8 of 12 for 127 yards and a touchdown. I said, if both these teams were 3A, this is a Kevin Tressolini, Brad Myers easy headline to post here. The one thing I thought of when I was watching this game, and you pointed it out to me, was that Tieron Rice was going 2-a-days in the summer because they were instituting an entire new offense and defensive system. I wonder if this is the early, not so much fruits of that, but this is the result of that they're still working to get this stuff in rhythm. It's going to take a little while. I thought Christiana looked great. They had a 55-yard touchdown called back because of a hold that didn't really affect the play. Javion Pollard scored all 3 TDs, 1 on the ground, 2 on the ground and 1 through the air. Ike's Glasgow was great. They held Newark to 161 yards. They sacked them 7 times. Yeah, this was not your older brother's Christiana team or your father's or your grandfather's Christiana team going back way back. Yeah, this as you said, we wouldn't have been talking about this had the situation been reversed, but it was so nice to see. And boy, the energy and the enthusiasm from the Christiana kids was just fantastic. So this was a cool game to watch and a great result for Coach Wood and his kids. And it'll be interesting, very interesting to see where Tieron Rice and his kids go from here.
All right, one correction. Tower Hill's win was not a big shock or was not a surprise. I was thinking of another game. Tower Hill beat St. Andrews, which I would have picked. So my apologies to Tower Hill. That was not an unexpected win there. But Newark does go play at Tower Hill, coming off that win against St. Andrews. And Christiana hosts FSMA, coming off a big win in their own right. We'll talk about that in a second. They're 2-0 as well. All right, Caravel 31, Hodgson 6. And Marty, this was not a pretty game. Caravel had 5 turnovers, but still hung in there. But they needed 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. This game was a lot closer than 31-6 tells you, because it was.
It was late. Yep,
2 touchdowns they needed late to make it that long big scoring margin. Hodgson now 1-1. By Dave Collins' admission in game 1 against Howard, it was some penalties, some turnovers. It was he called it an ugly game.
Yep.
He didn't give me a term of what this was, but it's not, the word's not going to be pretty. But my thinking of Hodgson at this point, and I said in the broadcast last week that this game might tell me a little bit something about it. And I put it within the class system, and that was maybe unfair of me this early in the season playing against a Caravel team, which has not lost a regular season game and who knows how long, or if they have, it's one or two in several years. But here's what I'm taking away from Hodgson after this game. This team is not yet playing like a coached by Dave Collins football team that we saw last year when they got to the playoffs. And I think, would have had a significant chance to go far. And remember, they fought injuries last year. They lost
They
guys
did.
as, gradually from the
Yep.
first game
Yep.
on, significant guys. And so I think Coach Collins will agree with me. I think that his focus right now is going to be to get this team to play the Coach Collins way, where they're disciplined, they're not making mistakes that can be prevented, mental mistakes. They're not turning the ball over, and they're not getting penalties that are unnecessary, including on the sideline last week. And so it's one of these situations, I think, that I think this Hodgson team's going to be good once they start playing the way Coach Collins coaches football, which is error-free as much as possible, under control, and smart. And I think he can get this team there. And maybe you need two consecutive games like this before you start your 3A schedule to make players in your team realize, folks, if we continue to play this way, we're going to all be home for Thanksgiving Day. Nobody's going to be at practice. And
That's
so
right.
let's get focused on what we need to do. Because remember, a lot of these players were there last year when they were
Yep.
playing that way and they were having success. And so I think Hodgson's going to get better every game. And so that was my takeaway in the end from this Hodgson Caravel game.
Yeah, and thanks to Sally's, Hodgson did not have the most penalty yards of any team in the state this weekend by a long shot. We'll get to that later too. But yeah, this was a wild game because Caravel kept turning the ball over and over and over and all fumbles. And then they had the one interception. Josh Roy, by the way, again, the DMA transfer to Caravel. An amazing game. What 308 yards on
Yep.
36 carries, just, your average day.
Day out.
Uh, he was like a bowling ball. He was running over, around, through people, and three touchdowns. Hodgson, it's funny. I talked to a Hodgson assistant coach, and they said, "Look, you can say whatever you want about this game and the last game. We're 1-1, which is exactly what we were last year.
Right.
And we finished 7-3.
Yep.
So they said, I still feel like every one of our goals is there in front of us." He said, "Was this game a mess?" And it was an ungodly mess. It was, there was penalties. There were three or four screen passes that weren't even close to being completed because the receiver and the quarterback were not on the same page. It was just all kinds of things, pre-snap penalties, the unsportsmanlike penalties on the sideline and one of the players. And it was a sloppy game. This game ended, I think, early Saturday morning. It started on Thursday. This was a really, really long game. If you're an NFL fan, you didn't get to enjoy much football from some of how lengthy these high school games. But I agree that in the end, Caravel is Caravel. They look
Yep.
amazing right out of the gate. The only thing they haven't been forced to do, and this is only their first game, is Matthew Rice, the new quarterback, to really get out and throw the ball. We still have to
Right.
see what happens when he's forced to do that. But they have a great ground game, great lines, and Hodgson still has everything in front of them. Hopefully, this is a game that you kind of watch the game film once and then you burn it forever,
Right.
and you move on. And I think that's what Hodgson will do. I still think they have a lot of good guys coming back or that are returning this year, obviously. And Xavier Brown, I think, is still going to morph into one of the better quarterbacks in the state by the end of the season. So I think coming out of this, yeah, maybe we read a little bit too much into it, but I still think every goal there is for Hodgson to accomplish. It's still there.
Yeah, and you made the perfect point. 1-1 last year, 1-1 this year, and
Yep.
and similar games. And so I think Hodgson still, has a lot to show of what the
Yep.
talent that they have in that. All right, if you're looking to buy or sell a house, Mary Kate Johnson with Remax Associates will help you do it as if it was her own. An award-winning realtor with nearly 20 years of experience, she helped my wife and I sell our old house and purchase the one we've been in for the past 18 years, and helped us every single step of the way with things we had no idea we should know about on both ends of the sale and the purchase. We have since recommended her to dozens of friends who also were completely satisfied and recommended her to their friends. Whether it's a first time home, an upsize or downside for yourself, an aging parent, or one of your kids, do yourself a favor and reach out to Mary Kate Johnston with Remax Associates and let her make sure that you get the best value possible, whether you're buying or selling or both. Her website is marykj.remax.com. That's marykj.remax.com. And there you can also check out her multiple 5-star reviews on Zillow and read what other has said as well. If you want more information, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to give it to you. All right, Apo 45, Odessa 11. Marty, I looked at this game a little bit as maybe an Apo team being a little bit too cocky about itself, but for no reason because they hadn't played a game yet.
Right.
But they're loaded with talent. We've talked about the wide receivers. We've talked about their new quarterback, which was Desai Drummond. And I was told that by Coach Brian Timpson. I went out to midfield to get the pronunciations for some of the players for the first game, and I asked him who the quarterback was, and he just kind of gave me a smirk. And he said, Drummond. But that's the first time I've said that. So it really was a mystery whether it would be Drummond or Greg Nielsen, who got some playing time last year but got hurt, was out for the season. He did get into the game. And, so we'll wait and see. So they'll evaluate Drummond's performance. He did fine. But he did, he looked like a quarterback who hadn't played a lot of meaningful snaps at the varsity level because he played at Howard last year behind the Mark Matthews, who's now playing in college. And so, he's going to get better every game. And he did make some good plays and he can run the ball. And so we'll see, about that. But it was more on the defensive side that Apo controlled this game. They had 2 pick sixes, one by Noah Hoff and one by Yalik Carter. They also had a blocked punt that Amari Cofield returned for a touchdown. And so, if I was obviously at the game, I'm the PA announcer, and I'm thinking here, boy, our offense didn't do a whole lot. It was our defense and our special teams that won this game, and also the defensive unit, the extra point unit, Jack Talley, the kicker, Noah Hoff, the holder, and Hank Mowdy, the center, 6 of 6 from PATs, and Jack Talley converted a 37-yard field goal. Hint here, you'll hear more about them toward the end of the broadcast. And so, a phenomenal job there. And then they did score on offense. Noah Hoff had a big scoring play and a couple other scores. But I was glad from an Appoquinimink standpoint, and I'm an Appoquinimink fan. It's where my kids go to high school. That they won as significantly as they did, because I think it would have been a bigger story if they didn't, and a bigger concern if they didn't. And so 45-11 win there for Appoquinimink.
Yeah, this was great for Appoquinimink because they didn't have to showcase the offense, which we know they're loaded with weapons on the offensive side. And Desai Drummond, the jury is still out, but it looks like athletic-wise, if you watch him in the preseason scrimmages and some of the practices, man, the kid looks amazing. And then they have the drop back passer Greg Nielsen in the background too, which I imagine we'll see him at some point this season as well. But yeah, the defense, Noah Hoff, if I believe, did not play defensive back last year until the very end of the season. Is that right?
Till the end of the season, yeah.
And now they realize, hey, maybe this guy with incredible speed and great hands we can put in the defensive backfield.
and nobody's going to say that's why he plays defense and isn't a wide receiver.
That's right, exactly. Oh, he dropped it. Dang it. We almost had a 90-yard touchdown return. Well, he didn't drop it. And for Odessa, it's going to be a climb. Nick DeGotti, it's funny. If you read the News Journal article, Brad wrote a really great News Journal article about this game, about the Vader defense that Odessa calls it. And Nick DeGotti was, of course, the defensive coordinator at Apo last year. So a little cat and mouse with holding the quarterback's name back from the beginning of the game. Odessa has had 2 rough games to start. They looked pretty good at times last week. They never really were able to get anything going against this Apo defense. And I think if nothing else, this really continued to stay. A lot of people before the season said, you know what, Apo is loaded on both sides of the ball. This did nothing to dispel that notion. You look at 3A, I think you have a tier right now of Salesianum number 1. And then just below that tier, there's a little bit of space. And then you have a team like Apo. Until somebody proves they can go out there and take down Salesianum. But I thought Apo, this was a fantastic opening for them. They get the special teams touchdown, 2 defensive touchdowns, and they didn't really have to put too much on tape, to be honest with you, for some of these other teams to see early on. So for Odessa, again, it's going to be a climb, and Nick and the coach before him decided to play Dan Pritchard a really challenging schedule, which is only going to help them in the long run. And this isn't Nick DeGotti's not going to be here for one season. He's going to be here for a long time, and he's going to get this program where it needs to be. But for Brian Timpson and company, a great start.
Yeah, so Odessa is going to host Middletown, and of course, Middletown's going to come in a little bit upset
Oof.
about what happened last week. Appo goes to Dover, an odd 6:30 kickoff, and there's got to be a reason. I'm sure maybe to get it over a little bit earlier than otherwise. I'm not sure what 30 minutes does it.
Yeah.
Once you're flipping the lights on, it really doesn't matter
Yes.
how
What's the
late it is. Why
difference?
not play at 7 o'clock? But it is what it is. I reminded fans of that as I signed off on the PA system to, 6:30 means that's not when you arrive. That's when
Oh
the
yeah.
kickoff is. And everybody take note of that. Now, Dover's coming off an off week. They lost in the opener up in that Pigskin Classic in an 8-3. Must have been a defensive battle. But they were supposed to play another team from New York. And that game, originally it was said postponed. And then it was said canceled because
Yep.
neither team has a common week off leading forward in the season. Now, the big issue is you wouldn't think, well, it's a big deal. It's only New York, but those are playoff points. And so if you're Dover, and again, we're talking about Class 3A, and Dover's in that middle tier right now,
Yep.
those points could be valuable. You don't want to be, Wilmington Friends is famous for playing just 9 games, and it
Yep.
never impacts them because they're usually 8-1 and they get in the playoffs, or 7-2 at worst. Who knows what Dover's going to be? And so I think I would assume they're going to try real hard to reschedule something, but I don't know. I should have looked closer at their schedule. I don't know if they have an off week because
They
they
only
did
have
start week
one.
0.
It's
Okay.
September 20th, I believe, that weekend.
So it's
But
quick.
I actually sent a note to Dover because I did have one question about this, and that is they could possibly file for a forfeit
Right.
if Canarsie was the one who canceled this game, at
Correct.
which point they'd get the 4 points and not have to worry about it. But
Right.
yeah, depending upon the circumstances, there was literally zero information about why this thing was
Yeah.
postponed and then canceled.
And
So,
that's exactly right. A forfeit does mean you get the points. And if it was an in-state team for whatever reason, they may not allow the forfeit. Now,
right,
DIAA may tell them you've got a forfeit. You cancel the
right,
game for whatever reason. That's unacceptable. But an out-of-state team's going to play. Who do we care if we forfeit
right,
this game? It doesn't
right.
matter. Whatever. But it'll be interesting to see what that happens. Sorry, you had one more thing to say.
Oh no, no, that's okay. I was just going to say I do think if it's not, they clearly need to pick up a game
Yeah.
and get this
Yeah.
thing scheduled because they may need those points. We have no knowledge at all what a Maurice Polk Dover coach team looks like. I
No.
mean that the 8-3 game was a kind of it wasn't televised or anything, so I don't know that anybody saw it. And they scored 3 points, so we don't know what's there. We do know they've been a great program in the past. They still have a lot of good players. They lost a couple key cogs, but yeah, I'm really curious to see what Dover looks like this year. They're the one question mark really in the entire state right now.
Yep. All right. So another question mark going into this week was the St. Mark's St. George's game. St. Mark's wins it 14-12. They scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So it wasn't an easy win. Marty, this is a game that could be a big win come playoff time because nobody would argue right now that St. Mark's and St. George's are going to be in that group of
Yep.
teams that somebody's going to get in and the rest aren't of that group. And so could end up being a very big win for St. Mark's.
To put it in perspective, St. George's came back from a big deficit to beat St. Mark's last year.
Mm-hmm.
If St. Mark's had won that game, they and not Smyrna would have been the 8th seed in the state tournament. Smyrna
Yeah.
would have been out. So this is a huge win. It kind of was the reverse of what happened last year. You had St. George's jumping out to a lead, not a big lead, obviously, but and then St. Mark's coming back. You also there was a really long delay. They had to helicopter a player from St. Mark's to a hospital. By all reports, that kid is okay now. I do know who it is, but I don't want to say because I don't know what the parent situation is or whatever. But it sounds like the young man is okay. This was a huge win for Coach Wright and St. Mark's, I think, to get out of the gate because last year was so frustrating. They had they had chances, and
Yeah.
their thing was if they beat Sally's, they would have gone to the state tournament last year. Well, we knew that wasn't going to happen. They were just completely outmanned. They're a lot smaller on the line this year than they have been. So this is a great win out of the gate. This kind of reminds me of the CR over our William Penn game in the first one. These are the games you have to
Yep.
win if you're St. Mark's, St. George's, CR, William Penn. And so far, CR and St. Mark's are the ones who've gotten it done in these games. So a great job right out of the gate. James Campbell did a really nice job. He scored the winning touchdown on a quarterback sneak, had some nice completions to Michael Burgos. They had 11 play, 75-yard drive, which led to that final touchdown. So a nice finish for St. Mark's on a day when I'm sure it was tough for them after the kid was helicoptered off the field.
Yeah.
It's tough to kind of refocus and get back into it, but they did.
Yep. Glad to hear that he is okay. All right. St. Mark's is going to host 2A Archmere. They're 1-0 with a win over St. Elizabeth. And this is a game that St. Mark's does not want to lose. You
No.
can't afford to lose to teams outside of your class. if you want to make the playoffs. St. George's host is Hodgson, and it's going to be a big game for both teams as well. Athletes and students of all ages, unleash your potential with the Win the Day Planner, your key to building winning habits for a lifetime. This planner was put together by a local longtime wrestling coach and teacher, Dan Regby, who led Cesar Rodney and Milford High School to multiple championship appearances and a combined 3 state titles. He's got nearly 2 decades of experience teaching and coaching students of all ages and abilities. What started out as an 18-week planner for one sports season quickly expanded to a 42-week one for the entire year, and now it includes one exclusively for students who don't play sports. The Win the Day Planner doesn't just help you become a better athlete or student, but also a better teammate, a better friend, and most importantly, a better person. Get your print or digital copy today at winthedayplanner.com. That's winthedayplanner.com. All right, Sally's 29, Smyrna nothing. Smyrna, as you mentioned, I think earlier in the broadcast, held 147 yards. This game was at Smyrna, which made it even more of an amazing thing. That is one of the toughest. That's got to be one of the top 5 toughest places to play, especially early in the season when the weather's nice. And so it was, this is a Smyrna team that used to easily score 40-plus points a game. They never punted. They had the earthquake. They were just an offensive powerhouse. I don't think during that run, the Nolan Henderson and shortly after him, I don't think there was a more potent offense in the state. And Mike Judy quickly figured out, well, we better have a defense too. And he did, after that 70-point per team game up there against Sally's that one year.
That's right.
And so, to see a Smyrna team get shut out, if there was high school betting for sports in Delaware, nobody would have taken a 0 on this one.
And they still have a ton of offensive weapons. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Plus, you add in the fact that Sally's had roughly 180 penalty yards in this game.
Right.
You're thinking they're got to slip a score in here somewhere. Yeah, Sal's had about 180 penalty yards. Smyrna had 140 total yards. That's incredible to me. On the plus side of things, I got some numbers and stuff from Gene Deladon. I didn't even bother to ask him about the personal fouls because my guess is it would have been like, that's not going to happen again. Yeah. There had to be 8 or 9 unsportsmanlike / personal fouls on Sally's in this game. It got really ugly at times, but the backfield, Aiden Lego and Odell Teal might be the best 1-2 punch in the state. Lego, 117 yards on 19 carries. Teal, 76 yards on 14 carries with a TD. A lot of those for him come from that Wildcat formation. He did play quarterback at DMA last year. Defensively is where I think Sal's is, again, Paul Werlo, that defense is just incredible. Roman Trubiano, 10 tackles, 4 of them for loss. Mitch Cummings, 11 tackles, a forced fumble. Jeff Healy, 11 tackles, 1 for loss. Jay Burrell, 3 tackles, fumble recovery, a 56-yard fumble return for a touchdown, and 2 pass breakups. So the Sally's defense was everywhere here. And I think the one thing that we haven't seen in 2 games for Smyrna, we haven't seen Drew Mark's game yet because the opposition has been so overwhelming. And he got beat up in that Sally's game, which we're probably going to be saying that about a lot of opponents after Sally's games this year. That defensive line, those linebackers are just incredible. This was shocking because you kept waiting for a Smyrna run at some point. Of course, a lot of that's based on the 41-40 playoff game last year. Mm-hmm. Both teams made adjustments. Sally's, again, I just think the athleticism, the one thing, the Bill DiNardo years, those teams were solid. The one thing I think, and this is, again, not a slight at Coach DiNardo at all, but excuse me, the younger generation with Gene, he's unleashing the athleticism in these kids and sort of letting them kind of freelance a little bit. Yep. And these kids are all over the field. There's a ton of athleticism there. And I've seen nothing to suggest that Sal's isn't the number 1 contender to repeat. Mm-hmm. The state title. With Smyrna, it's almost like when I talked to the Hodgson coach. They're 0-2, which they were last year. Yep. So they had to sneak in, which they did. And but I'm sure they want to avoid the number 1 seed in the tournament again for the second year in a row. So it's going to be – this seems like a perfect opportunity for a get healthy week against DMA. But we'll see. I love Cale Denigris in that interview with Sean Green said, hey, bring it on. They have got a great offense. That's fine. Our defense is better. We'll see.
Yeah. Yep. That's why they play.
It's a confident kid, but that's why they play the games. That's right.
So Mike Judy's a great coach. He's proven that, and he'll get this thing turned around, whether it's turned around to championship caliber or not this year. But, like you said, he's got a young quarterback who,
Yep.
although he's got varsity playing time, he always, the pressure's different when you're the only quarterback. It's one thing when you're, swapping sets with Justin Tiberi, who's now playing up at Millersville. But, it's different when the team is yours. And so he's adjusting to that. And like you said, he's faced probably the two best teams he might face all season, or
Yeah.
certainly, at that caliber. So,
Agreed.
they'll figure it out. All right. FSMA, First State Military Academy against Charter School of Wilmington. One word, Marty, and I'll let you take it away. Hail Mary. Maybe two words.
Yes.
Hail Mary.
This was so awesome. It took me a while to track this down from a First State Military parent, the video of this game, the final play. It's a 50-yard Hail Mary pass from Nate Price to DeJare Johnson. If you haven't seen it, go to my Marty Debate Twitter page and you see the video of this. The throw comes down. It's about a 35-yard throw, comes down at the 15-yard line, and then DeJare, it's almost picked off by Wilmington Charter, goes right through a Charter kid's hands into DeJare Johnson's hands, and he turns, and he just turns on the jets, and he has to get past one kid, and he does it. The crowd's going nuts. And this is a huge win for FSMA. Again, they're 2-0. Coach Braxton was thrilled at how his team is playing, especially defensively. I mean, you're not going to count on a Hail Mary at the end of every game, but he sent me up Mark Briggs, one of their linebackers, 5 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery. He said the lineman of the game was Jarrett Waltz, outside linebacker, defensive end, 4 tackles for a loss. And he wanted me to mention Dana Shelton, the defensive coordinator. He said just doesn't get enough credit for what he's doing defensively. So Dana Shelton, the defensive coordinator down at FSMA, doing a phenomenal job. And again, it's so great to see a program like that doing so well. So FSMA 2-0 out of the gate and looking like a playoff team again.
Snapped a 3-game losing streak to the Force after that. Of course, Charter School of Wilmington has been at the top of the District 1 team, not the top, but, in the mix the last couple of years since they changed to the class system.
Yep.
They're going to go play at Polytech. Polytech is 1-0. First State Military Academy is going to play at Christiana. So that'll be an interesting game.
That's an intriguing game.
Coming off the big win. And so we'll see about that. All right, last of our quick hit games. Tatnall, a 1A team, defeats Wilmington Friends, a 2A team. And Marty, this was the game early in the podcast when I said a surprising win.
Yes.
I had my T's mixed up. It was Tatnall, not Tower Hill.
Yep.
This was a surprising win, and it kind of revenged a loss last year. Tatnall's only loss.
Their only
was
loss,
to Wilmington Friends. And so a great win for Tatnall.
This one I would not have picked in a million years. I friends with a Tattersall at quarterback. Tattersall's all over the field. You just feel like Friends is one of those teams that has a 1A sized roster, but a 2A talent roster. Mm-hmm. And Tatnall just keeps coming. I mean, Brendan Ireton has done a great job there. Quinn DeVere, the quarterback, the young quarterback, I think he's one of the more underrated players in the state. He was 11 of 22, 140 yards. Chris Gordon, 92 all-purpose yards. Jude Maycole, 3 catches, 57. Defensively, this is where I really thought Friends was going to overwhelm them on the defensive side. The Hornets got great performances from Gino Greer, 10 tackles, Jude Maycole, 10 tackles. He also had a interception of Tattersall at the end of the game that shut down a drive, and Ben Marvin, 9 total tackles. This is so far, I would have said, it's no big deal. Tatnall was 0-1 last year and then ran the table. They're going to be 0-1 this year, and then we'll see what happens. This was a great win for Brendan Ireton and his kids to establish some confidence going into the rest of the season.
All right, Tatnall plays St. Andrews. Wilmington Friends is going to play Dickinson. So 2 matchups there for next week. All right, that does it for our quick hits segment. Now it's time for our helmet stickers, where we give out helmet stickers to Class 1A, Class 2A, and Class 3A folks. And then we pick our promotion zone player of the week. Ironically, Marty, my wife surprised me and actually got stickers with the podcast logo on it, without our ugly faces, or my ugly face, your gorgeous face, on the label. And so what I'm telling people is, if we mention your name as a helmet sticker, and you reach out to me, I will send you, it's a sticker, and you're not going to put it on your helmet. But you're not going to put it on your helmet. It's too big. But you can put it on your where, or you can throw it in the trash, and that might be it too. But
I love it,
and you might not want one, and that's fine too. But if you do reach out to me, we're not going to track everybody down.
Yeah.
But if you do reach out to me, I will stick a Delaware High School Football Pod logo sticker in the mail to you, and you can hang it on your refrigerator. Your mom will love that.
There you go.
All right, so let's start at 1A. I'm going to start because I just got this information this morning. Coach
Hmm.
Waco from Tower Hill sent it to us, and this is what we need, folks. Send us stats. You know, we
Yes.
we Marty especially um, works to get the stats, as many stats as we can get, and otherwise we rely on what we see on X, what we see in the newspapers, what we
Yep.
see with reports by Delaware Sports Live and 302, that kind of thing. But we know there's other stats out there. We also realize it's a quick turnaround because
Yes.
if you play Saturday night, it's going to be tough to get us stats by Sunday at 9 o'clock, which is when we tape this podcast. But if you can, that's great. And we'll take estimates. Had 200 plus yards. If you know your running back broke 200 plus yards, let us know. We don't need to
Yep.
know it's 232. Anyway, Coach Waco in their 27-21 win over St. Andrews. The quarterback, Michael Waco, obviously, I assume in his son, 19 of 31, 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. And 2 of those touchdowns were to wide receiver James Taylor, who hauled in 11 passes for 177 yards. So those are my Class 1A helmet stickers to quarterback Michael Waco and wide receiver James Taylor from Tower Hill.
And mine, before I get to it real quick, I was talking to Coach Braxton on Twitter about 10 o'clock last night from FSMA. And he said, yeah, I'll try to get these to you as soon as possible. And I wrote back and said, look, man, this is your fault. You're the one who took this team that nobody cared about, turned it into a title contender, a playoff contender. And he wrote back, thanks a lot. That's what you get for being a good coach and getting things
Yeah,
turned
that's
around.
right. Exactly.
So at 1A leading into that, my two guys are Deshair Johnson and Nate Price, the guys who hooked up on the Hail Mary yesterday, 50 yards again. It just went berserk at the end of this game. It's just a great thing to see. You love high school sports where there's a fantastic finish, and we got 2 of them over the weekend. So my helmet sticker for 1A goes to Deshair Johnson, who caught the 50-yard pass from quarterback Nate Price.
All right, 2A, I don't have one because Marty came up with it. And again, this is a thing. Sometimes we'll each have one. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 or whatever. It is what it is. And it was a backfield combination from Archmere. And Marty, I'll let you introduce them.
Yep, quarterback Johnny Orsini from Archmere. They beat St. Elizabeth's 39-21 yesterday. The game really wasn't as close as that. St. E scored a couple late touchdowns. 10 of 14 for Orsini, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 30 yards and a touchdown. And I also this full disclosure, this kid is a cousin of mine. Michael Donovan had an interception, a rushing TD, and a 2-point conversion. Archmere off to a great start. They're one of those teams that they kind of lurk around all the time, and you never know what you're going to get. And last year they end up in the state title game against Caravel. So a great start for Archmere. So the two A stickers go to quarterback Johnny Orsini and running back / wide receiver / defensive back Michael Donovan.
Alrighty, congratulations to them. And Marty, when I was thinking Archmere, I think of the auk. And I thought,
Yes.
what the heck is an auk? I've never looked it up. So I
It's
looked
some
it up.
weird bird.
It's a flightless bird
Yeah.
related to the penguin family that's extinct.
Oh,
And I went into the tower to Archmere's website, and I couldn't find anywhere why they named their mascot this. And this would be an interesting thing. You and I are these geeky people that are
yep.
interested in this kind of stuff. Like I got a book one time that explained the nickname of every professional team in America, and
Yep.
it's one of my favorite books. I'd love to know, like in this case, how did they come up with that name? Smyrna Eagles, they'll probably tell you when the high school opened, there were eagles flying all over
Yep.
the place down there, type of thing. Senators, Dover Senators, I get it. Caesar Rodney Riders, I get it. Archmere
Yep.
Hawks, don't get it. And so would love to know if anybody's out there know how they came to that name. All right, Class 3A. I'm going to start here.
Yep.
Personal connection. Kicker Jack Talley. And again, whether it was a personal connection or not, he'd be getting a helmet sticker. 6 of 6 on point after touchdowns, 37-yard field goal. Marty would have been good from 50, and he's been kicking them at 50 plus in practice at Appoquinimink High School in that win. Also to Hank Mowdy, the center of that unit, and Noah Hoff, the holder of that unit. Now, what makes this even more interesting, and Jack Talley is a first-team All-State soccer player on Appoquinimink High School. As a junior last year, he's a senior this year, plays right in front of my son in goal. So I really like Jack for that reason because he makes things a lot less exciting for my son. But
Yes.
anyway, and I was thinking about this, and Jack never played. I think he might have played flag football at one point, but I think his true tackle football career started here in my basement because they were over here horsing around, and Jack's rear end put a hole into the wall in my basement. And so I think that's when his first contact football career started
Oh
was
God.
right here in my basement, and had nothing to do with kicking. But anyway, he's a great soccer player, and he's obviously a great kicker. And we know, Marty, kickers have gotten better over the years. And Jack's not the first soccer player to be a kicker.
Yep.
But it's really when you have a kicker who is almost guaranteed on extra points, and you can run in there for a 37-yard field goal. And I'm convinced, Marty, even though I think when he came in, we had a lead of a touchdown or two or whatever.
Hmm.
I think we could have been down by 7, and they would have sent Jack Talley in to kick that field goal. That's how good he is. So helmet stickers to Jack Talley, Hank Mouty, and Noah Hoff. I'm going to drop Noah's off to him or have my son take it to him
There
and
you go.
see what he does with
And I
it.
love Hank Mouty being in there because I believe I'm almost 100% sure that Hank Mouty is the son of Rich Mouty, who I went to high school at St.
Oh,
Elizabeth's
really?
with
Oh,
and
that's
played
cool.
baseball with. So that's a very cool connection.
And Hank was injured most of last year, and so great to see him back because he's
Oh,
the
great.
center on the line as well. So good for them. So Jack Talley, Hank Mouty, and Noah Hoff, my Class 3A helmet stickers.
Our next is, well, I don't have any helmet stickers because we're
Okay.
going to go to the player of the week this time. I
All right.
figured we're going to go right to that guy.
All right. Player of the week is the promotion zone player of the week. Whatever, wherever, and however you want to promote your organization, product, or anything else, Promotion Zone can help you make the right decisions based on your needs and your budget, whether it's apparel, pens, coffee mugs, or something out of the ordinary. Promotion Zone is your one-stop shop for all your branding needs. Celebrating their 15th year in business, they're located right here in Delaware, so you're working with people who understand the value of hometown business relationships. You're not going to be on hold with somebody from artificial intelligence from somewhere else in the country. You can check them out on Facebook at Promotion Zone DE, or on their website at promotionzone.biz. Prefer to call them. It's 302-832-8565. That's 302-832-8565. And again, the best part, you'll get a live person. Promotion Zone, the swag folks since 2009 for all your branding and apparel needs. So our Promotion Zone Player of the Week will receive a t-shirt from them. And we would love if when you get it, you take a picture of yourself and send it to us so we
Yes.
can promote you and Promotion Zone as well. Take it away, Marty.
Love it. All right, we're going to go to Bear for this week's Player of the Week, the Promotion Zone Player of the Week. It is Josh Roy of Caravel. Now, there was a lot of stopping and starting in that Hodgson Caravel game. The one guy that was not just stopping and starting was Josh Roy, who seemed to just rip off tons of yardage every time he touched the ball. He was the one constant in that game for Caravel that they could rely on, play in and play out. He was phenomenal. Hodgson, a 3A team, has a fairly good defense, we think. And they were shredded by Josh Roy. This was a fantastic performance. So the Promotion Zone Player of the Week goes to Caravel's Josh Roy.
And I talked to Coach Reed yesterday about Josh Roy for my column for the New York Post to get some stats. He said you won't meet a nicer kid, and just a great kid.
Love hearing that.
And again, he came in and he had to replace a couple guys in that backfield who were all state performers. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him this year and in the coming years. All right, time for the Diamond Hill Unit of the Week, sponsored by Diamond Hill Incorporated. For more than 20 years, Diamond Hill Incorporated has been serving all of Delaware and the surrounding areas in all things construction, from commercial concrete and site development to residential projects. They have you covered. Email info@diamondhillinc.com for more information. That's info@diamondhillinc.com. All right, I'm going to roll right in, Marty, to our unit of the week. It's going to be the Sussex Central offense. We did a lot of talking about them early in the podcast. In a nutshell, 2 scoring drives inside the 5-minute mark against Middletown. With legacy is that they're a great defensive team. Sussex Central's wing T took command in that final 5 minutes to get them to a 37-33 win. It was quarterback Bradley Chavez, as Marty mentioned earlier, to Jawan Sturgis with 3 seconds left to score. And so the Sussex Central offense is our Diamond Hill unit of the week. All right, that's going to take us to the Grain Gridiron College Update. Grain restaurants were started by 2 local businessmen and friends on Main Street and Newark, and now they have locations in the Summit Marina on the C&D Canal and Bear, and Lewis at the ferry terminal, their newest location at the Star campus in Newark, right across from Delaware Stadium. Their nightly and weekly hangouts for some, gathering spots for special occasions for others. The menu has something for everybody, some usuals and some peculiar things, as they put it. My favorite part of Grain is knowing that it was started by 2 neighbors here in Delaware who had an idea, and that idea not only came to fruition, but it has flourished. Fortunately, they love sports and love serving the community in a lot of different ways, and we appreciate their support of our podcast. So thank you to owners Jim O'Donoghue and Lee Michaels. And we picked this sponsorship for them because Jim O'Donoghue's son, who starred at St. Mark's for his high school career, is now on the roster at the University of Delaware. And so he's a freshman there. So we look forward to seeing him play as his career goes on in there. And so our players to watch in that is I'm going to say a couple, and I know you've got a couple as well, Marty. This is one that doesn't have stats, but I looked up and Priest Jones, who played at Caravel last year, so he's a freshman at Ursinus. He's playing. He's a 6'1", 260 offensive lineman, and so he's getting time already at Ursinus College, who opened up their season with a 45-14 win over Alvernia. And my next one is a really cool one because I followed this kid at Appoquinimink High School. It was quarterback Ryan Von Brandt. And so if you were a high school fan 4 or 5 years ago, he was the 6'7" kid that stood out as a quarterback. And he was a starting quarterback for Appoquinimink for 4 years. He went to VMI, Virginia Military Institute, and he has struggled with injuries his first 2 years there. He's been moved to tight end, and he scored his first touchdown against Bucknell Saturday. So that was very cool to see. His father, Kurt Von Brandt, who coaches at Appo, he posted it on social media, and so that was really neat to see. So those are two people that I saw out there who are, Grain Restaurant college looks. That's what these great kids from Delaware High School are now doing at the next level.
Yep.
Over to you, Marty.
Yeah, Ryan, Edge, and Leighton. You got Von Brandts all over the place. They're going to be making noise. My first one, this was this guy used to send shivers down the spines of 1A defensive coordinators. Last year, he was the 1A player of the year, Rashawn Lamons, who was the quarterback for Tatnall. He had his first college game last night for Susquehanna. They beat Brockport 41-7, and all Lamons did was carry the ball 6 times for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. And had 3 catches for 99 yards and another touchdown. And the coach's comments about Lamons are just praising out the wazoo. If you go and look at Susquehanna's Twitter page and look at some of the highlights, the speed of Rashawn Lamons against some of these D3 players is just insane. So congratulations to Rashawn Lamons. My second one is a kid from Smyrna that we talked about last week, Markel Holman. He had 17 carries for 76 yards and 1 catch for 10 yards for St. Francis yesterday, an FCS team. They actually made history yesterday at St. Francis. It's their first ever win over an FBS team. They beat Kent State 23-17. It was a game on ESPN Plus I caught the end of. So congratulations to Markel Holman. And then my last one is from, again, going back to Smyrna, Debo Williams, who is a defensive end linebacker / guy at South Carolina. 6 tackles again last night for South Carolina. I can't remember if they won or lost. I wrote it down and then somehow deleted it. But anyway, Debo Williams is a force on defense, and the fan base loves Debo Williams down in South Carolina. So nice to see these guys. And if your parents out there, again, please send us your players who are in college, what they're doing. Even if it's guys who are on the offense, defensive line, don't have stats or whatever, let us know what they're up to. We'd love to highlight them on the air.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Marty. Grain Gridiron College update. And that's it for this week for that. And so, all right, now let's go on. So week 1 in the books, over.
Yep.
On to week 2, or the third week of high school football. We're going to get rid of that week 0. That's one of my things determined to do here. So we'll just bounce back and forth. My 3A game to watch is Appo at Dover, and not just because I'm an Appo fan. Appo's coming off that big win. I want to, a good Appo team that's ready to compete for a championship goes down there and plays right with this Dover team. This Dover team opening at home, 6:30 again, early kickoff, and it's going to be on Delaware Sports Live. And so you can see it if you can't make the trip down there. A Dover team that lost 8-3, had a game canceled last week. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether they come out like a polished team with 1 game under their belt, or whether they're going to have some of the struggles we've seen happen with teams that are playing their first game. So my 3A game to watch is Appo at Dover.
And my 3A game is going to be St. George's at Hodgson. It's at Caravel Saturday at 11 a.m. St. George's does not want to start the season with 2 losses in 3A right off the bat. And Hodgson is going to be looking to right the ship after that disastrous performance against Caravel. I think this is a huge game in determining, against Caravel, in determining seeding in the playoffs down the line. If St. George's is even going to be a playoff team, I really think they need to win this game. So St. George's at Hodgson Saturday at 11.
And that's going to be covered by Sean Green on
Yeah, I thought so. I
WDEL.
couldn't
Yeah.
remember. Okay.
And people that wonder why Sean's not doing Friday night games, it's very simple. WDL covers the Phillies. And
Yep.
so Sean's maybe hoping the Phillies don't make the playoffs when the rest of us are. But Sean, trust me, you want to follow him on X because he covers football as closely as we do, even when he's not covering games. But it's great. It'll be great to hear him on the air at the Hodgson, Georgia, St. George's game on Saturday. That's WDEL. All right, my 2A game, Caravel at Howard. I also, that's a game that want to see how John Reed's group rebounds off that big win, but an ugly win, as he would
Yep.
say, things to fix there. And Dan Ritter's team had that close loss, and I forget the exact score, but it wasn't a blowout to Hodgson playing up a class. And now Howard had a week off, and so they're back. That game's up at Howard. So I think that's going to be an interesting game, Marty. When I look at Class 2A, we just talked about Caravel being there at the top, and then you got to look at Red Lion, DMA, Archmere, Howard, Woodbridge, Delmar. Those are the teams you normally talk about in the playoffs. Laurel, and again, I probably left somebody out. But, my point being, it could be a statement game early on. If Caravel wins significantly, they go even higher up as that one
Right.
team that we've put at the
Yep.
top tier by themselves. If Howard plays with them, maybe Caravel can be beat type of thing. And so that's going to be an interesting game for me. Your 2A game.
My 2A game is Red Lion at Lake Forest Friday at 7 p.m. I think this is a huge game for both teams. Lake Forest has looked great in their two games against some really good competition. Red Lion hasn't really played anyone at their talent level yet. They played up, playing Cape, and then they played Glasgow, who they were clearly was overmatched against Red Lion. So this is the first game we're going to see Evan Budinger and that offense in a game against a like opponent. And it's going to be really interesting to see where Red Lion stands as a contender. And the same thing for Lake Forest. This just feels like one of those barometer games for me.
All right. Class 1A, early college high school at AI
I knew you were
DuPont.
going to do
And
that.
so why the heck do you care about that game? Well, here's the main reason I'm interested in it. You've got two teams that should be very evenly matched.
Yes,
Maybe not for a good reason, but they should be very evenly matched. And I think that's great for the players, Marty, because these are two
I
teams.
do too.
Let's be honest. These are two teams that are underdogs in every other game the rest of the season. And they're both 0-1. This could be the only win from one of these programs. But more importantly, I just think it's wonderful that these players are going to prepare this week knowing that they're playing against another school with the same roster size in terms of numbers of kids on the team, the
Yep.
same number roster size in terms of height and weight, and the same skill level. And that's what kids want is they want to play in competitive games.
Have a chance.
Blowout games they're not fun. I
Yep.
shouldn't say that. They're fun, but you don't learn a lot, and it's and you don't get to play. The starters don't get to play a lot because they get pulled out, type of thing.
Right.
And it's great for the backup. I digress. This is going to be a good match. It should be a good matchup. And again, I love from a sport standpoint that these players get to spend a week preparing for a game that they know how they both have a legitimate shot to win.
Yep. And just to correct one thing, AI is 0-2. They did lose
Oh,
to
sorry.
Indian River this week. So
Gotcha.
they have yet to score a point. Neither team has scored a point yet. So it's funny because if you hadn't said this, I was going to pick that game as well for the exact same reason. And somebody's going to walk away feeling really good about themselves after
Yeah.
this game.
Yep.
So my 1A game, I kind of went a different direction. First State Military Academy at Christiana. Again, if Newark beats Christiana this week, I'm not talking about this at all. But now you've got a Christiana team that looked really good on both sides of the ball. First State Military, which looked great in their opening game. Granted, it was against early college. And then needed the Hail Mary to beat Charter, but a win is a win.
Yep.
So now you've got 2-0 First State Military Academy against 1-0 Christiana. Be interesting. I'm more interested in this to see Christiana and what they look like against a team that we know at 1A is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So to Coach Wood and his guys is kind of a challenge. Let's see what you got.
All righty. So that's our games to watch coming up in week 2. All right. To end it here, Marticelli Restaurant Group weekly trivia question. Marticelli Restaurant Group, they own the Chesapeake Inn, Klondike Kate's, and La Casa Pasta, all three restaurants known for delectable dishes, cozy ambiance, and exceptional service. And thanks to the Marticelli Group, one lucky listener each week gets to eat out at one of them for free with a $50 gift card. You can enjoy signature crab cakes and other fresh seafood at the Chesapeake Inn, homemade pastas and seafood specialties at La Casa Pasta, or Klondike Kate's famous cheesesteak, egg rolls, and nachos. We can't thank the Marticelli Group enough for supporting our podcast and in turn supporting high school football here in Delaware. Marty, I always say this. We reached out to Marticelli Group because I know how good their food is. Because when my wife and I or the family go out to eat, it is always at either La Casa Pasta or Chesapeake Inn. And when we're up near campus, it's Klondike Kate's. Love all three of the places. All right, Marty, trivia question of the week. And who won last week, obviously.
Last week's winner was, and I got to go back here real quick, is Justin Waltz. And I believe my question for that week was Middletown and Sussex Central played in 2007 and 2020. And what was the significance of both those games? Because they didn't play any time in between. The answer was they were both state championship games, and they split those games. So Justin Waltz, who I believe his son plays for FSMA and may have helped me obtain that tape that I got of the Hail Mary. So congratulations to the Waltz family. You get a gift card in the mail to you this week. This week's trivia question is a little different. And I can't remember, we may have given this away earlier in the show when we were talking about it, but Mike Judy took over at Smyrna in 2014 as the head coach. His first game, it goes to show the times are changing. His first game was a 22-8 loss to Glasgow at Smyrna. Smyrna fumbled 5 times. He was not happy after the game. I looked up the old News Journal article. They were just shut out on Friday night by Salesiano, 29-0. So for a chance at a Marticelli Group gift card, question this week is, prior to Friday night, how many times had a Mike Judy coach Smyrna team been shut out since 2014? For the answer, send it to delhsfootball@gmail.com. You can also send it to John or my personal accounts or our Twitter podcast account. Have it in by Wednesday. I do the drawing on Wednesday at 8 p.m. But so delhsfootball@gmail.com for the answer. And again, the question, Mike Judy has been the coach at Smyrna since 2014. Prior to Friday night, how many times has a Smyrna coach Judy team been shut out?
All right, there you have it. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Special thanks to our sponsors, Grain Restaurant, 4 locations in Bear, Lewis, and 2 in Newark, the Marticelli Restaurant Group and their restaurants, Chesapeake Inn, La Casa Pasta, and Klondike Kate's. Promotion Zone, the swag folks since 2009 for all your branding and apparel needs. Diamond Hill Incorporated, commercial concrete, site development, and residential projects. Mary Kate Johnson with Remax Associates Real Estate. Dan Rigby, author of the Win the Day Planner, and Andre L. Photography, excellence from every angle. And of course, the presenting sponsor of the podcast, websitesforsports.com. If you're a sports player, parent, or fan, it's the only website with a schedule of every high school and middle school team, stats, and more. Don't forget to follow us on X at DELHS Football and Facebook at the DELHS Football Pod. And please like and share our podcast to help us spread the word about the wonderful sport of high school football here in Delaware. And of course, this episode appears on YouTube as well, if you're not aware of that, as well as everywhere that you listen to your podcast. Until next time, for Marty Sheehan, I'm John Buzby. Have a great sports week.